Hi everyone, thank you so much for watching my video on preparing for the English test. My name is Shelley and I'm an English tutor specialising in English exam preparation with the Down Under Centre. I provide private tuition to people needing to achieve a particular score in their English exam, whether they've tried the test before and didn't get the result they need, or haven't taken the test yet but want to get it right the first time. I work with my students one-on-one to find the best and simplest ways to get them the highest score they can. And like this video, lessons are held entirely online. Today's video on preparing for the English test is looking at the two ways to study for the test. Whether you're taking IELTS General, IELTS Academic, PTE Academic, or any English proficiency test really, and regardless of whether you're taking the test for academic or immigration purposes, you really need to look at both ways to study for the English test. The first way to study for the test is to improve your English language skills. English language skills refer to our ability to speak, our writing ability, how well we can listen and read in English. Now, some people think that because they're native English users, they'll breeze through this English test. Well, unfortunately, that's not always the case. About 90% of people who come to me for tuition are native English speakers. But because this exam isn't only testing if you can just get by in English, the scores that many of you need are much beyond this level. These tests are used by the top universities in the world, and they test up to a high standard of English language ability. So regardless of whether you're trying to get into one of these universities or you're trying to migrate to an English-speaking country like my homeland, Australia, you still need to get a particular score in the exact same test. So, depending on your current ability, which might be quite high already, especially if you've been to uni or your job requires a high standard of written and spoken English, in which case you might not even need to improve your English language skills. But unfortunately, these tests are very specific. They ask for specific things to be completed in short amounts of time. And if you aren't already very familiar with what those specific things that you need to do are, you generally won't do nearly as well as you could do in the test. That is why the second way to study for the test is to improve your test skills. Becoming a master of the English test starts with the basics. You need to know everything about each type of question, study the question types, from the time you are allocated for each question, to the marking criteria, to the many different ways the question could be worded, and how that would change your response. There are 20 different question types in PT Academic, and even more possible question types in IELTS. Learn how to answer, learn methods and techniques that help you, and then practice. So, the two ways to study for the English test are to improve your English language skills and improve your test skills. The first method that most people try is to improve their English test skills. They learn about the test, practice taking the test, and eventually sit the test and see if they can achieve the results they need. The other method, whilst less popular and more time consuming, is often equally or even more important than the first to improve your English language skills. For some people, becoming a master of the test is enough to get them over the line and achieving the score they need. Being completely honest, though, for many people, just preparing for the test itself is not enough, and some English language improvement may be required. But that is the beauty of private tuition. I can help you with both. If you're falling short on your writing ability, for example, we'll work on improving it in terms of the test requirements and criteria. So let's look into each of these two ways to study for the English test. For people using English as their second or third language, you've probably got some idea of your English language ability in terms of a level that you might have achieved in school or personal education. For example, if you've completed an English language course at B2 level, then you'll know your English is pre-advanced and you can expect around a 75 score in PT Academic or a 7.5 in IELTS. For native English speakers, however, it's a bit more complicated. You can't necessarily pick up an advanced English grammar book and study it, because the chances are that you won't be familiar with the lingo used to describe most grammatical structures at that level. For example, do you remember what adjectives are, or verbs, nouns? What does passive voice mean, and when should you use it? Would you be able to make a sentence in future perfect continuous tense? So you could go back to basics and learn grammar from scratch, but this would require quite a lot of time to eventually progress to advanced grammar, which is what you generally need for a high score in the English test. So why not ask for help? English tuition is not only for test strategies and preparation for the English test, it can also help to target your particular language weaknesses and any areas which need some improvement. You'll be provided with the relevant grammar, vocabulary, test structure, and response advice to improve your test results, explained in a simple way that's easy to understand without needing to know the lingo. Knowing exactly where you need to improve in relation to the test and your English language ability can be made so much easier and simpler with some help from an experienced English tutor. Your tuition will combine, depending on your individual needs, a suitable combination of English language improvement as well as preparing you to master the test itself. There are ways to improve your English language skills on your own too. So if we look at the 4 skills that you'll be tested on in the test, we can combine them into pairs. So listening and reading are our receptive skills. So that means that you are receiving the English language. Speaking and writing, on the other hand, are productive skills. So you are required to produce the language. Now, you can work on these in your own time. So, for example, to improve your listening ability, listening to podcasts can be really helpful, but you don't want to go for the fun ones if you're doing this to prepare for the exam. You would want to go for something academic or maybe nonfiction. Uh, Probably go for something that's not really of interest to you or something that you wouldn't normally listen to, because that will prepare you for a similar situation in the test, which is quite likely to happen. And same for reading. Try to go for something a little bit more academic and maybe nonfiction. When it comes to your writing and your speaking ability, these are a little bit more difficult to improve because as you're producing the English, so if you're writing or if you're speaking, you really need to receive feedback on where you're going right and where you're going wrong, because it's quite difficult to judge yourself in these skills. And that is why it is so useful to take lessons. But of course, you can also rely on your friends and your family to give you a little feedback, especially on writing. How quickly can I improve my English language skills? This is different for everyone. Some people just make a few common mistakes here and there, and once those are fixed, everything else falls into place. Some people may have just been out of school for a very long time, but if we can jog their memory about more formal versions of English, it can all come flooding back. But in general, if your English language ability is holding you back from achieving a high score in the test, you might need to seriously think about giving yourself anywhere from 3 months to study before sitting the exam if you're doing it on your own. Now, if that's a bit of a shock, I've got some good news. Remember, there were 2 ways to study for the test. Becoming a master of your English test is one way to find extra points in the exam without actually improving your English language ability. Knowing everything about the test, from the marking criteria to the amount of time you should allocate to each question, will certainly help to improve your score. For some people, becoming a pro at the test is enough to get them over the line. However, this improvement will always be limited by your English language skills. A common example of this is when someone has taken the test multiple times, perhaps with some improvement each time, but not quite reached their goals. If they are seeing enough improvement, if they aren't seeing enough improvement from simply studying for the test itself, then they probably need to consider studying to improve their English language ability as well. But even so, being an expert on the test you're going to take can boost your score, sometimes by enough to get you over the line without any change to your language ability. So, how do you become an expert? You can learn about the test, read, research, look at textbooks, watch YouTube videos. There's really great content online. Just be careful that you're looking at legitimate sources and that what you're watching or reading isn't outdated. Understand the question types. So, this comes into learning about the test. So, knowing all of the questions that you will or might be asked in the test and how you are expected to answer for a high score. So, this means studying the marking criteria for the score you need. You can see in clear black and white what it asks you to do to achieve a certain score. So, if you don't meet that score, it means you didn't meet that criteria. Simple. Take practice tests. I recommend one practice test near the start of your preparation. After you've researched the different question types and you know the marking criteria, then take a practice test to really get a good estimate of your current level in each of the tested skills. You can find scored practice tests for IELTS and PTE Academic online. Then find different techniques. There are many different ways to approach every single question in the test. One technique for one particular question might work really well for some people, but then that same technique might not help another person. It really comes down to your individual strengths and weaknesses. In private tuition, I'll establish your weaker English skills and then we'll try to find a technique that works for you, that makes answering the question easier and quicker for you. I'll also try to give you as much feedback as possible so you know exactly where and why you're losing points and how to improve it for next time. Then you can take a real practice test. So, what I mean by this is taking a real test when you think that you're pretty much ready. Or if you have taken a practice test previously and you were very close, then you might feel ready to take the real test. But calling it a practice test rather than a real test can take the pressure off. And then if you don't know if you're quite ready or not, it'll also alleviate disappointment if you don't quite reach the score that you needed. But if you do happen to get the score you needed, then that's a bonus because you considered it a practice test, but now you've got your certificate and you don't need to take the test again. And then practice, practice, practice. Practice really does make perfect. So the more you do, the easier the test becomes. As mentioned, one of the ways you can get an idea of your current level in terms of the test is to take a practice test. If you're taking IELTS, there are official practice tests available online called IELTS Progress Checks. But because the Down Under Centre and PTE Pearson are mates, we get a 10% discount for practice tests and the real PTE academic test, which we then give to you. So you can visit the Down Under Centre's website to get the discount codes. Now, if you are wondering if tuition is right for you, just think about how many benefits there are to getting the results you need on the first test. Some people, unfortunately, take the test multiple times before they decide to take tuition. For starters, the tests are not cheap, so taking some tuition and saving the time and money, not to mention the stress of having to resit the test, is a huge benefit alone. But it's also a confidence boost. When you walk into your test knowing that you are prepared and that you can achieve the results you need, it's a much better feeling than being a nervous, sweaty mess like a lot of us are in test situations. And once I've had a chance to assess your English language strengths and weaknesses, you might only need a few pointers to get you on track. Some people only take one lesson to get them heading in the right direction. Others might take a methodical approach of, say, 2 lessons per week for 6 weeks leading up to their test. And then there are some people that come to me in a panic a week or two before their test, wanting a lesson maybe every day to catch up. I don't recommend this method, as depending on your English language ability when you come to me, we might not have enough time to get you where you need to be. But the main key and my main advice is to be prepared. However you want to prepare is fine, but being prepared will make all the difference in your test. Tuition is priced at £50 plus tax for a single 1 hour lesson. Or if you know you'll need a few lessons to get you where you need to be, we also offer bundle deals of 3 1 hour lessons for £135 plus VAT. There are discounts available for Down Under Centre clients, so if you're a member, please get in touch with me for the discount codes. You can book via the link in the video description. It's really easy, or otherwise you can watch my video on how to book English tuition with me. I hope I get the chance to meet you all, virtually at least, and help you with your English test. Please feel free to send me an email, shelley.mays@downondercentre.com, if you have any questions about English tuition. I hope you enjoyed my video on the 2 ways to study for the English test. I'll be releasing more videos on preparing for the English test, so please stay tuned for more.